Brian Moorley is on the other end of our line. He is an attorney with Fraser, Trebilcock, Davis, and Dunlap, PC. And I would suggest to you, Mr. Moorley, you were in law enforcement. Nobody writes a ticket for 5 over. I mean, it's usually more, and then they drop you down to that. Isn't that how it works?
Yeah, I think if you're referencing the Bernero one that you were just talking about, in all likelihood, that's probably a speeding on the highway that was either the officer gave him a break in the field or it was reduced down to the 75 and the 70.
Yeah, and he's not the only one. The Attorney General candidate of all people, Bill Schuette, the Republican, has 2 speeding tickets, both for going 60 in a 55 zone. That would suggest to me that he was going faster than 60.
Same concept, exactly. It's either the officer giving a break in the field or it's getting reduced at a pretrial with the prosecutor.
Yeah. Well, anyway, this is amazing that we get down to the facts of the driving license of these, driving records of these candidates. Everybody gets speeding tickets from time to time. But Brian Moorley,
Sure.
What about this? The sheriff's office in Macomb County investigating a situation where a sheriff's deputy, 26-year veteran of the department, was transferring some prisoners in a van from the courthouse to the jail. He crashed into a Pontiac Grand Prix in broad daylight in 3:40 in the afternoon with 13 inmates in the van. And guess what? They think he might have been texting while he was driving.
Oh, gosh, you hate to hear that happen. You know, I think what we forget sometimes, though, is that our deputies and police officers are just like you and me. They're not any different. You see it, I'm sure, as much as I do driving down the road. I see people texting.
Yep.
It's too bad. It is distracting as all heck. And it's a shame that happened. Doesn't make them any different than you and me. I hope everybody's all right. I got to believe discipline's coming from it because it is, as you know, contrary to law these days. But doesn't make them any different than you, me, and all the other people that I see out here.
Particularly embarrassing, though, when it's a sheriff's deputy texting while driving.
Oh, absolutely.
We talked earlier, yesterday, in fact, with the former state representative Vera Rison. She's asked the governor, in a very impassioned fashion, to let the National Guard come into Flint and restore order. A little while ago, we talked to the mayor of Flint, Dane Walling. He says that's absolutely not necessary, nor is it appropriate. What are your thoughts? You come from the Flint area. You were in law enforcement there. Over 50 homicides this year so far. What's your take?
Two thoughts on it. First of all, it's my understanding. I don't know Ms. Risen, but I have known of her for years. She's always very passionate about what she does. So when you say it's a very impassioned request, I understand that. My understanding, though, that it isn't necessarily. The governor's office response was that it wasn't framed properly. It's also my understanding. Here's my simple answer to this, Michael Patrick, is say it happens. When do we say, okay, we don't need the National Guard anymore? Things in Flint right now are really bad. It's a violent town, unfortunately. The police department has been literally cut to its bare bones. And say the National Guard does come in, just hypothetically, when does everybody say, okay, Flint's fine, we can go home? My concern would be National Guard comes in and they never leave, and that would be problematic for the city of Flint, would also be problematic for the National Guard. So I don't know where it ends, is my original thought. And then it's also my understanding that in order to bring in the National Guard, and I'm not going to pretend like I'm an expert in this area, but you have to declare a state of emergency. Now, it's easy to say, well, there are real problems in Flint right now, and it is a state of emergency. I don't know as a practical matter, as a legal matter, that it is necessarily a state of emergency. My take on state of emergency with the National Guard is Hurricane Katrina, the riots in Detroit in the 60s, things like that. This is bad times in Flint right now due to economic downturn and cuts in the police department. So I don't know that it's necessary. I don't personally think it's a good idea. I know for a fact from discussions that the Flint Police Department is literally cut to its bare bones. I think they have an arrangement with the Michigan State Police right now where the troops are sending in a few more troopers to assist. Mm-hmm. But I think, unfortunately, this is the tip of the iceberg. I think you'll see this around the country. City of Chicago suggested the same thing back in May because their violence is rising.
Wow. For heaven's sakes, Brian Moorley, it sounds like you're talking about Baghdad when you say that we'll send in the troops and we won't know when we can take them out of Flint. But It's really awful to think about that. Thank you very much, though. First-hand knowledge from Brian Moorley at Fraser to Bilcock, Davis and Dunn.